Earlier today, I was at the local Buffalo Wild Wings with a couple friends of mine, and they had told me about a buddy of theirs who they've known for a number of years, really since childhood. I think since they were probably 13 or 14 years old, and they're in their late 30s now. But this friend of theirs reconnected with them about 2 years ago, after having not talked to them for 14 years. And of course, that's very bizarre. I mean, this was a childhood kind of teenager best friend of theirs, right? And I guess the reason why was that he had gotten with a woman, gotten married, but then gotten divorced. So he reached out to them after getting divorced, after, having custody battles about his daughter in court and stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself how, number one, there's so many men who get with a woman and just drop all their plans, all their life goals, everything. They stop associating with friends of theirs. They stop connecting with their family. And they essentially let the woman lead the way and take control of their life. And then when it ends, which in many cases from what I've seen it does, the man now comes back to his friends who they haven't talked to for a long time, or family. Meanwhile, they've spent so many years that they should be focusing on their goals, their mission, their purpose, on complete nonsense. And I wanted to tell you guys a story about a friend of mine who he was a childhood best friend, I would say, someone I knew from middle school and high school, who had a similar kind of experience as this friend who hadn't talked to his buddies for 14 years, where he just let the woman take control, take the lead of his life, and wasted years on focusing on his mission and purpose. And the relationship ended ugly. So I had a buddy of mine who had finished his bachelor's degree, was doing everything he should do. I mean, I know not everyone's pro college, but that's besides the point. You guys know how I feel. If you've seen, I made a couple of videos about this where there's obviously more routes to success than college. In many cases, there's people that are going to college, getting degrees that maybe won't do much for them. There's people that get into trades, that people that get into jobs, work, all different kinds of stuff. That's besides the point. He was being productive with his time. So he had finished his bachelor's and he was planning to go to law school, which anyone in the right mind would look at that and be like, wow, this is someone who's going to be able to build a future for himself, support a family, do all that kind of stuff, be financially successful. And he was getting ready for the LSAT exam, which I know they have the bar exam, which is, I believe, after law school, you take that so you can actually be certified to be a lawyer. And then the LSAT is what you take before law school, essentially an entry exam, right? It's like a sort of a placement test. And he was studying for that. Now, in the meantime, when he was studying, he had actually traveled to Detroit, Michigan with a friend of his who was actually dating a girl from Detroit. Keep in mind, we live here in Washington, the Pacific Northwest. So he was traveling a long distance. And while he was there, he actually had met a girl in a nightclub, which, of course, most of you guys probably listening will be like, that's, you don't need to tell me more than that. I mean, like I said before, the nightclubs, bars, those kind of stuff is not the kind of place you want to meet a woman. Dating apps, again, not the kind of place you want to meet a woman. It's like you're betting against the house with all the odds against you. But nonetheless, they connected. He was a little bit buzzed, whatever you want to call it. Nonchalant, just went up to her, complimented her. They connected, exchanged numbers and all that. But he was going back now to Washington from his trip. And she actually had him kind of in a loop where they were texting, all this kind of stuff, connecting on social media. And during that time that he was supposed to be studying for this LSAT exam, which he was studying very hard before getting to know her, he stopped studying. He would be in Detroit every now and then. Every 2 or 3 months, he'd go to Detroit for a number of weeks, number of months. And of course, I think she had come to Washington only once, but he went there at least 2 or 3 different times. And she had actually been very disrespectful. Came to find out that she was texting her friends, gossiping about him behind his back, saying how he's not a real man, saying how he doesn't have his own money, and that his parents are the ones supporting him and stuff like that. What I find so crazy about that, which I'll get into how he found out about the text, but I want to touch on this because it's an important point. I've seen a lot of women do this with this hypergamy stuff, where they want a man to have everything right now, or they're comparing themselves or comparing their man to some social media thing, facade, whatever you want to call it, some guy in a yacht or some guy with rented cars or some, whether they're rented or not, some guy that has it all figured out right then, right now. You'd think she should look at this guy who's, by the way, in his very early 20s, figuring his life out and being like, you know what? This is a man who's going to have his stuff together, who's going to be successful in the long run, who's going to have money if he's successful in being a lawyer. But she has more respect for the guy who has the Instagram clout or social media clout, the guy who has it all figured out or seemingly has it all figured out. It's crazy. I see women that'll have more respect for a guy who, again, is jobless, even in some cases, versus a guy who's respectable, lawyer, engineer, someone who has it figured out. I mean, like I said, it was a girl from a nightclub, so not the best pool of women to be dating in the first place, not the best pool of women in general that would ever be worth taking seriously. He was young and perhaps naive at the time. But the reason why he went through her phone is he had a gut feeling that she was doing things she shouldn't be doing, which of course that shows that there were red flags there. He wasn't ignoring the red flags, which is good. So when he was over in Detroit while she was asleep, he went through her phone and then found these texts. Like I said, her texting her friends, saying all this kind of stuff about him, how he's not a real man, doesn't have his own money. Also came to find out she had in her notes a list of all these guys that she had slept with, all of their star signs or whatever those things are called, Leo, this and that. And it was at least 13 different dudes. This girl was in her very early 20s, which is crazy as it sounds. I've heard some people say those are rookie numbers. I know someone personally who I'm related to, the girl that he went to prom with in high school. Keep in mind, this was around 10 years ago. When, from what I've heard, I mean, some people said it's as bad. I mean, I've heard it's gotten worse in terms of the whole sleeping around stuff. But this girl was 17 and she had slept with more than 30 different people, more than 30 different dudes at the age of 17. I mean, that is disgusting. That's the only one, but that is absolutely disgusting. That is not a woman that I would ever be able to take seriously. But with this situation, he found out that she had been with a lot of different guys, had their names in her notes, and with the disrespect. Now, I credit my friend for this. A lot of you guys would maybe say, oh, he was this and met a girl at a nightclub. Again, like I said, he was a lot younger and naive at the time. But he had he had what it took to put the foot down and break up with her. And I commemorate him for that. Because there's a lot of men who, unfortunately, from what I've seen, whether it's desperation, whatever it might be, will let women get away with this kind of stuff. Let women get away with the red flags of, oh, I can fix her and this kind of stuff. It never ends up working out. So I completely, and I even told him straight up when we got on the phone. Because I remember he called me when he was in the airplane, and for some reason I had a gut feeling that something was up because he wasn't back from his trip. I knew when he was coming back. He called me while he was in the airplane. He told me what happened, said he broke up with her, told me the whole situation. I said, dude, look, I commemorate you for that, and it's good that the relationship did not last much longer than a number of months. So he comes back to Seattle. She's all emotional, trying to make things up with him, and again, I commemorate him for this too. He blocked her on social media so she could stop hitting him up and stuff like that. Also, so he could stop thinking about her. But where the story kind of takes a turn is that all the time that he was supposed to spend studying this LSAT exam, studying to get into law school, he was spending over in a long distance relationship with this girl in half the country away. So he ended up taking the LSAT and did not do well on it. Did not get into the law school that he wanted to get into. He was a very smart guy. He had phenomenal marks with his bachelor's degree. But he was so distracted and so derailed and lost focus on his mission and purpose that he did not get as good of a score as he ideally should have. He stopped studying. Like I said, he was gone for months at a time. So even with that, obviously there's more routes to success. There's options to take it again. There's options to get into other law schools, whatever it may be. But my point of the story is that there's so many times where women, especially toxic women like in this situation, will ruin and derail good men who are doing the right things, who should be focusing on what they need to focus on. I've seen it time and time again. I've known friends that have gone with women. They freeze their gym memberships. They stop hanging out with friends. They stop hanging out with family. They stop going to work even in some cases. And these are times where it backfires. I had another friend of mine with an ex of his who, he's someone I talk to this day. I could call him family, to be completely honest. There was a girl he was dating around a year and a half ago. Met her at a Starbucks, which, kudos there. It's a step up from a nightclub or a dating app. But met her at a Starbucks. And she had this male best friend that she was hanging out with, which he was, like any man for the most part, should not be okay with. If they're not, should not be okay with that. And he told her straight up. And she was saying that she's known him since 7th grade, all this kind of stuff. Turns out this guy was who she lost her virginity to in high school. And they were in some weird open relationship where he was sleeping with other people, other women, whoever. And she was able to be with other dudes, but they would talk every day. And again, what was such a red flag in the situation was that she would barely even make any time to spend with him. And it would only be on weird days like Tuesday, Thursday, never a Friday or a Saturday, because she'd be out partying, doing other stuff. She'd be out with other dudes. We came to find out down the line because a friend of ours actually went to high school with her and told us the kind of person she was. She told my friend that she had only been with 2 other dudes. That was a complete lie. It was apparently in the hundreds from what I've heard. Well above 100. It was disgusting what I heard about this girl. So, again, a situation where he wasted a lot of time on a girl who fed him lies. And the reason why we found out that she was up no good was actually because she would try to make it sound like she would be staying at her parents' the nights that she could not hang out with him. And my friend's a smart guy. He could be a detective, quite frankly, but he had a bad feeling about that. His gut was telling him something is up. So me and him went for a drive, and we actually saw her at a movie theater. It was the AMC. I can't remember which one it was, but it was an AMC. And we saw her get out of the car with like 2 other dudes and another girl at like 11 p.m. They were going to seeing a movie. The night that she said she was with her parents, that she couldn't hang out with my friend, who was her boyfriend at the time, apparently. It's absolutely insane. And guys, a real important point I want to make with even videos like this is why we need real brotherhood and camaraderie among men. Because when men are going through this, when I've seen so many men broken with divorce, with all different kinds of stuff, to have someone there as a brother who calls you, not because they want a favor, not because they need something, but just say, hey, bro, like, I hope you're doing well. I want to see how you've been. We haven't talked in a while. Hope all's well with you. Like, I have friends who are going through right now in this moment custody battles and stuff like that, and I check in on them because I know how hard it is. I'm not saying I know from experience. I know from seeing other people and countless people go through it. Like, even in this video, the 2 stories that I picked out, I could have picked several to go off of, several. And that shows you how common these kind of things are. That's why these kind of videos need to be made, because this kind of toxic behavior needs to be called out. Men are getting their lives destroyed over toxic relationships with women. Their lives destroyed, thrown in financial ruin, being taken to clears. Do people not understand that? And the other thing people need to understand too is because you get all these weird, these kind of butting heads and stuff like that. In order for any sort of marriage or anything to work, it's never going to work with a toxic woman. It's never going to happen. People talk about all this stuff nowadays. If we have men, good men especially, like I've seen most good, decent men, getting with these toxic women, it is a complete waste of time. It is never going to work out. And like I said, it's so heartbreaking to see so many good men who have worked so hard to build themselves up, a lot of them who've come from nothing, to be completely derailed and destroyed by toxic women. It's never going to work, folks. And, again, this is why it's so important also, why I've touched on in previous videos, men having purpose, sticking to their purpose, not easily getting derailed by stuff like this. Because, and I hope by putting out videos like this and many other awesome channels, my friend Dev, all different kinds of people who makes content like this, that men who are younger and perhaps less experienced or more naive, whatever you want to call it, they can see that and know how to have the discernment, know the red flags to look out for, not make these mistakes. I don't want to see good men make these mistakes. I don't want to see good men in these kind of positions. And I've seen it way too many times. I could count at least with both hands how many people I know personally who have gone through toxic relationships, toxic ex, divorce, custody battles, being taken to the cleaners, financial ruin from divorce. It is far too common, and a lot of people don't seem to understand that. Even with men's problems and stuff like that, you have a lot of the times women want to come out and on videos like this even, they'll say, oh, well, what about our problems? What about women who feel... I understand there are women who perhaps go through things. I'm not taking that away, but understand something. In a man's space, when men want to talk about their problems, you have to give them their turn to talk. Because believe it or not, there are so many men, countless men, suffering in silence with stuff like this. It took me over the past few years, again, I guess I'm more of at an age now where people have kids, get married, stuff like that. If they even do that still. Where I wouldn't have thought 5-10 years ago that this was so common. But it's disturbingly common. And again, that's why this kind of stuff needs to be addressed and brought to the limelight. It really does have to be. You know, good men being beat down by toxic women and you know, society, whatever you want to call it. It's not a joke. It's not a joke, people. But as always, appreciate you for viewing the video. And I got a pop filter on the mic, so hopefully that won't be an issue now, guys. I got a few comments on that, so thank you guys. Always a pleasure.